Everything is about to explode in Power Book 4, Season 3, Episode 4. The tension in Chicago is at its highest. And every move Tommy makes pulls him deeper into a world where one wrong step can end everything he's built. Episode 4 won't just push the story forward, it's preparing to break every alliance, expose every weakness, and force every character to face the choices they've been avoiding. Something major is coming, and if you think anyone is safe, think again. Tommy Egan is standing at a point where every choice he makes shapes the future of the entire city. Episode 3 left him with growing pressure from all sides, and Episode 4 will push him to make a move that changes the whole game. Tommy isn't the type to sit back and wait for things to settle. He knows that hesitation in the drug world is the quickest way to get buried, so Episode 4 will likely show him taking action before anyone else can. He has been watching enemies grow stronger, seeing partners hesitate, and feeling the walls close in. What makes Tommy dangerous right now is that he understands he cannot trust anyone fully, not even the people who claim to stand by him. His instincts are sharper than ever, and his hunger for control will push him to take a bold step that many people won't see coming. Tommy has been building his empire piece by piece, but the cracks are showing. The more power he gains, the more enemies rise. Episode 4 will show him trying to stay ahead of threats like Miguel and the Vargas cartel while also dealing with problems inside CBI. Tommy knows that he cannot fight several wars at once unless he turns one of his biggest enemies into a temporary ally, or removes one threat fast enough to focus on the next. That sets the stage for a move that is both risky and smart. He may strike first against someone who has been circling him quietly. This won't be a random attack, it will be a calculated play to keep his enemies unsure and off balance. Tommy understands that in Chicago, fear is power, and the person who controls fear controls the streets. Another layer building in Episode 4 is Tommy's growing sense that someone close to him isn't being fully honest. The uncertainty around him will push him to test loyalties. He doesn't always confront people directly. Sometimes he watches how they react under pressure. Tommy may give someone a task that reveals where they truly stand. If they succeed, he knows he can still use them. If they fail, he learns exactly what kind of weakness he is dealing with. This is why Episode 4 might include a moment where Tommy sets up a situation designed to expose a traitor or someone who's planning to switch sides. He is too experienced to ignore warning signs, and too ruthless to let disloyalty live for long. Tommy's personal desire for control also grows stronger with every episode. He came to Chicago to build something of his own, but now his world is more complicated than ever. Episode 4 may show him feeling the pressure of carrying an entire organization on his shoulders. He won't show weakness, but he will feel the weight. When Tommy feels trapped, he reacts with aggression, and that is exactly what makes this episode unpredictable. The next big move he makes won't just be about survival. It will be about proving he is the dominant force in the city. Whether he cuts a new deal, eliminates a rival, or threatens someone who thinks they can play him, Episode 4 will push Tommy into a role where he becomes even more dangerous. Everyone around him will feel the shock of whatever he decides to do next, because once Tommy locks onto a plan, nothing and no one can stop him. And that is why Episode 4 is shaping up to be the moment where Tommy shows Chicago exactly who runs the game. Diamond is entering a phase where the pressure around him is growing faster than he can control it. And Episode 4 will push him into a dangerous emotional space. He has always tried to be the calm leader, the man who thinks before he acts, the one who keeps CBI steady while others lose control. But the truth is becoming harder to hide. Diamond is losing his grip on the very empire he fought years to protect. The streets are changing, alliances are shifting, and his brother Jennard is becoming a problem he can no longer ignore. Every time Diamond takes a step toward peace, someone pulls him 2 steps back into chaos. Episode 4 will show these cracks widening as he tries to hold on to power while dealing with the guilt, fear, and frustration he has kept buried for too long. His decisions will be less about strategy and more about survival, and that shift makes him more vulnerable than ever before. One of the biggest issues pushing Diamond into a downward spiral is Jennard. That relationship has been broken for a long time, but episode 4 will highlight how deep the damage really is. Diamond wants to believe he can fix things with his brother, or at least keep him at a distance without starting a war. But Jennard isn't someone who accepts limits, and every move Diamond makes seems to push Jennard further toward violence and rebellion. Diamond knows that if he doesn't deal with Jennard soon, someone else in the city will land that could spark a war inside CBI. This internal conflict will weigh heavily on Diamond in episode 4, making him question whether he can still trust the people closest to him or whether he must finally make the painful choice of putting loyalty aside for the sake of survival. The stress of this situation will make Diamond act more emotionally than he ever has, and that may lead him to decisions he will regret later. Diamond is also facing outside pressure, and episode 4 will show how these external threats add to his collapse. Every group around the City Tommy's organization, Miguel's cartel, rival crew sees CBI as unstable. In the street game, instability is a weakness predators are quick to exploit. This means Diamond must constantly look over his shoulder, trying to keep CBI from being swallowed by forces more powerful than he can handle alone. He wants control, but control slips through his fingers every time a new enemy appears. Episode 4 could bring him face-to-face with a choice he has been avoiding. Either join forces with someone he doesn't trust or fight on multiple fronts until he has nothing left. His pride will make this decision even harder, because Diamond has always believed he could lead without bowing to anyone. But the weight of leadership is starting to crush him, and episode 4 will expose just how isolating that burden has become. On top of all this, Diamond is carrying the emotional consequences of the life he built. He tried to leave behind the violence, the lies, and the constant fear, but those ghosts follow him everywhere. Episode 4 will show moments where he questions whether he was ever meant to rebuild his life or whether the streets will always pull him back into darkness. The more he tries to be a better man, the more the world around him tries to drag him into the old patterns that once destroyed him. This internal war will make him unpredictable. When a man is torn between who he wants to be and who the streets demand he be, every choice becomes a risk. That is why episode 4 may show Diamond making a choice that shocks both allies and enemies. It might be a choice driven by anger, fear, or desperation, but it will send a message that Diamond is no longer the calm leader people expect him to be. His spiral isn't just about losing power, it's about losing himself. And that is what makes his storyline one of the most dangerous threads leading into the heart of the season. Miguel has reached a breaking point. And episode 4 will show exactly what happens when a man who lives by control feels that control slipping away. He is not the type to respond with warnings or small threats. When Miguel reacts, it is with force, precision, and a message that echoes through every corner of the city. Episode 3 ended with his world being shaken in ways he did not expect, and episode 4 will push him into a dangerous mindset where revenge becomes his only focus. Miguel has been watching Tommy slowly chip away at his influence. He sees the cracks forming in his operations, the disrespect growing on the streets, and the fear he once commanded starting to fade. That is something Miguel will never allow. Episode 4 will show him stepping forward with a strategy that is not just violent but deeply personal. His anger isn't coming from business pressure alone, it's coming from pride, ego, and the belief that someone like Tommy cannot be allowed to walk around and check. Miguel knows Tommy's style well by now. Tommy doesn't hide. He doesn't run. He pushes until someone falls. That makes Tommy both predictable and unpredictable at the same time. While Tommy is bold enough to take risks, Miguel is methodical enough to crush him if given the chance. Episode 4 will show Miguel using his strengths, patience, planning, and the power of the Vargas cartel. He may not attack immediately, but he will start tightening the noose. He will send people to watch Tommy's moves, follow his allies, and study his weaknesses. Miguel believes in striking where it hurts the most, and that means targeting the people Tommy trusts or the business Tommy needs to survive. Episode 4 will likely show Miguel preparing something bigger than a simple shootout. It may be a trap, a setup, or a hit that forces Tommy to respond in ways that expose him to more danger. Miguel wants Tommy off balance, and the first step is making him feel like the walls are closing in. What makes Miguel even more dangerous in this episode is his understanding of Chicago's power structure. He knows the city is filled with groups who don't fully trust each other. He knows CBI is unstable. He knows the Flynns are desperate. And he knows that any of these groups can be used as tools in his war against Tommy. Episode 4 may show Miguel manipulating the city's tension for his own benefit. He could feed information to one crew to spark a conflict. He could offer deals that he never intends to keep. He could use fear to push someone into betraying Tommy. Miguel doesn't just want to eliminate his enemy, he wants to weaken him first. Episode 4 will highlight how skilled he is at turning others into weapons, even a single conversation or a quiet agreement made in the shadows could set off a chain reaction that traps Tommy in multiple fights at once. Miguel's real strength is not his soldiers, it's his ability to make people believe they have no choice but to follow his orders. But beneath all the strategy, Miguel's personal emotions will take center stage. Episode 4 may show how deeply the Vargas cartel values loyalty and control, and how Miguel views any threat as an insult to his entire family. He sees the cartel as an extension of himself, and Tommy's constant interference feels like a direct attack on his identity. That emotional fuel will make Miguel more violent than ever before. Episode 4 may bring a scene where he sends a brutal message to remind the city of what happens when someone crosses him. It could be a hit on a small crew that works with Tommy, or an attack on a supply line, or even a sudden move against someone Tommy cares about. Whatever Miguel chooses, it will not be random. Every action will have purpose, and every result will bring him closer to the moment he wants most, a face-to-face confrontation where he can look Tommy in the eyes and show him exactly who holds the real power. Miguel's strike in Episode 4 will not be the final war, but it will be the spark that lights the fire. His actions will force Tommy to react, pulling everyone in Chicago into a battle that none of them are prepared for. And once Miguel makes his move, there is no turning back. The city will feel the shift, alliances will crumble, and the streets will know that a full-scale war is coming. Episode 4 is the moment where Miguel stops playing defense and steps into the role of a true antagonist, one who is ready to burn everything down just to prove he cannot be touched. Claudia Flynn is moving like a shadow this season, and Episode 4 is where her quiet plotting turns into a real threat that can reshape every power line in Chicago. She has always been smart, ambitious, and dangerously independent, but now she has reached a point where she refuses to let anyone control her future, not her father's legacy, not her family name, and definitely not the men running the streets. Episode 4 will push her into a position where she can no longer survive by staying on the sidelines. She needs an advantage, and the only way to get that advantage is by forming a secret alliance that nobody expects. Claudia has learned the hard way that loyalty in Chicago is temporary, but opportunity is everywhere if you know where to look. Episode 4 will show her making a move not from fear, but from strategy. She understands that aligning herself with the right person could give her enough leverage to challenge both Tommy's growing empire and the chaos unfolding within her own family. What makes Claudia's alliance so interesting is the type of partner she is likely to choose. She knows better than to work with someone predictable, someone who follows emotional impulses instead of clear thinking. She needs a person or a group who benefits equally from keeping their partnership hidden. This means her new ally won't be someone powerful at the top, but someone rising, someone hungry, someone who sees the cracks in the city and plans to slip through them. Episode 4 may reveal that Claudia has been meeting quietly with someone outside the Flynn circle, maybe an overlooked crew, a forgotten player, or a rival who's been waiting for the perfect moment to break out. She is not foolish enough to trust easily, but she is strategic enough to use trust as a tool. The alliance she builds will not be based on friendship. It will be based on power. And the moment she shakes hands with her new partner, the board shifts in a way no one sees coming. Claudia's motives are also becoming clearer this season. She isn't trying to take over Chicago the same way Tommy is. She isn't trying to fix old wounds like Diamond. She isn't trying to defend family pride like Miguel. Her motive is simple: survival and independence. She wants a future where she doesn't have to answer to anyone. Episode 4 will show the emotional side of this desire, the part she never speaks about. After losing so much of her family and watching the Flynn Empire collapse, Claudia understands that her last chance to protect herself is to build something new, something with her own rules. And a secret alliance offers exactly that. It gives her a partner who won't overshadow her, a plan that nobody can trace back to her, and the power to strike when the city least expects it. Episode 4 may reveal just how deeply Claudia believes that the only way to stay alive is to stop trying to repair broken relationships and start creating something entirely her own. But the most dangerous part of Claudia's alliance is the potential fallout. She is playing with a level of secrecy that even she might not fully control. If Tommy finds out she is plotting behind his back, their tension could explode into open conflict. If the Vargas cartel learns about her moves, they might see her as a threat or a pawn, both of which could end her quickly. Even within what remains of the Flynn family, her decisions could spark a new kind of civil war. Episode 4 will show that Claudia is fully aware of these risks, yet she pushes forward because staying neutral is no longer an option. She knows that the streets only respect strength, and strength comes from alliances, even unstable ones. Claudia isn't afraid of danger. She's afraid of being powerless. And that fear is sharper than any weapon in the city. Claudia's secret. Alliance is not just a storyline, it is the start of a shift in the entire season. Her quiet maneuvering will force other characters to make choices they are not prepared for. It will create questions, suspicions, and reactions that build toward a bigger war. Episode 4 will show the first signs of this shift, but the full impact will unfold across the rest of the season as Claudia steps into a role nobody expected. The unpredictable wildcard who could either save someone, destroy someone, or turn the entire city upside down with one move. Her alliance is a slow-burning fuse, and once it is lit, Chicago will never be the same again. Episode 4 is heading toward a moment that could change the season forever. And nothing shifts a story like force more than a sudden, unexpected death. The tension, the alliances, the betrayals, everything has been building toward a point where someone is going to fall. And episode 4 feels like the perfect storm. In Chicago, survival is never guaranteed, and the people who think they're safe are usually the first to get hit. This possible death won't be random or thrown in for shock value. It will be a moment shaped by the choices leading up to it, choices about loyalty, greed, jealousy, ambition, and desperation. Episode 4 is where pressure becomes fatal, and the streets begin to remind every character what the real cost of power looks like. Someone is about to pay that price, and their loss will send ripples through every crew, every alliance, and every plan moving forward. Right now, several characters are standing in dangerous positions. Some are caught between rival groups. Some are lying to people who will not tolerate betrayal. Some are pretending to be stronger than they really are. Episode 4 is likely to target someone who has become a weak link, whether they realize it or not. It might be someone close to Tommy, who has been making risky choices or keeping secrets they can't hide forever. It could be someone inside CBI who has been slipping under pressure, causing problems that others are no longer willing to clean up. It may even be someone who thinks they're too small to matter. But in a world like this, even small players can spark big consequences. Episode 4 will highlight how no one is too important to die, and no one is too unimportant to be used as a message. The most dangerous part of this possible death is the timing. Episode 4 lands right before the mid-season point, which is always where the story takes a sharp turn. The writers know the audience is waiting for something explosive, something that makes all the slow burn tension suddenly snap. That's why the death in episode 4, if it happens, will be carefully chosen. This won't be a random street hit or an accidental shootout. This will be a choice made by a character who believes they are doing what must be done. It could be an execution meant to prove authority. It could be a punishment meant to silence a traitor. It could be a hit ordered by someone who wants to reshape the game in their favor. Episode 4 will show that death in Chicago is never just about the person who dies. It's about the message that death sends to everyone else who's watching. Emotion will also play a huge role in this moment. The possible character death won't. Just shift the power lines. It will hit someone emotionally in a way that changes their story arc. If someone close to Tommy falls, he will explode in the most dangerous way possible. Tommy responds to loss with rage, and that rage could launch him into a war he cannot turn back from. If the person who dies is tied to Diamond or CBI, it could break what little unity they have left and push Diamond deeper in.